Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a really beautiful and powerful day during these momentous times that we are moving through right now. And we are nearing the new moon in Leo. The new moon will be exact on July 24th at 3:11 p.m. New York time. So this video is going to tell you more about that new moon, and especially I'm going to share with you about some of the energies that we've been navigating leading up to the new moon and that are wrapping around the new moon so that you can have the full context of what we're feeling at this new moon time and know how to work with it. It's a really bold and courageous new moon. It's at 2 degrees of Leo. So I'm going to tell you all about that in this short video. And also, I wanted to share with you a couple of opportunities coming up to work with me and to go to Egypt with me. So if these resonate with you, the links to learn more will be in the description field just below. The first opportunity here is the Egypt Return of the Ancient Wisdom pilgrimage, where I will be co-facilitating along with Stephen Mailer and Patricia Alyan Lehman. This will be taking place in person in the temples and pyramids of Egypt from October 21st to November 3rd, 2025. Now, this is the time to sign up right now if you're interested. That's because on Friday, July 25th, we're going to have our first group meeting where the whole group of attendees of this tour are going to come together on Zoom and meet one another and talk about logistics and answer all of your questions that you may have. So if you want to join us, please be sure to join us by the end of the day on the new moon day, July 24th. That way you can attend that first meeting and be sure to get all of the logistical details, all of the information to prepare you optimally to join us. This is going to be a magical tour. I will also include in the description field below this video a link to a video that Stephen and Patricia and I recorded just last Wednesday on July 16th, telling lots more details about the tour, what temples we'll be going to. I did a beautiful slideshow with lots of imagery from Egypt, so you will love that, and that will give you much more of a sense for me and Stephen and Patricia and how we work together and all the fun that we'll have in Egypt. So that's one exciting announcement. The other one is I have a new online course that will be starting on July 29th. It's called The Transformative Magic of the Malefic and Outer Planets. I will put this link in the description field as well, so you can check it out. This is going to be a really powerful journey where we're going to look at the outer planets very specifically, which are Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These planets are working with us so strongly from 2025 to 2028. They are helping to shape our evolution, our rebellions, our revolutions that are happening at this time. And also the planet Mars, which has been greatly misunderstood, I believe, greatly labeled with all of the patriarchal terms and conditions, and that is not true. That's not who Mars really is. So if you want to learn more about all of this and really help you to have this kind of paradigm breaking view of the so-called malefic planets and also the outer planets, and learn how to work with them, learn how to really bring their energies into your life in a very positive and very powerful and inspiring way, I highly recommend this course. And you can check all the details out at this link, which will be in the description field below, and learn more and see if you would like to join me for that. So without any further ado, let's move into the new moon in Leo astrology update. And I can't wait to share this with you. So here we have the chart for the new moon in Leo. It will be exact on July 24th at 3:11 p.m. New York time. So you can translate that to your own time zone and find the exact time for you. And I think for pretty much all of us in the Americas and UK and Europe, it will be on the 24th. For some, I think in Australia and New Zealand, it would be on the 25th. And for some of Asia, it would be on the 25th, early morning. So in any case, we have the sun and moon together here at 2 degrees of Leo, 2 degrees and 8 minutes of Leo, as you can see. And they're close to Mercury. Now, Mercury is at 13 degrees of Leo, and this is one of the major things. There are a few major things happening in the sky at the same time as this new moon that I want to also tell you about because they're all important. So we have Mercury retrograde. Mercury was retrograde since July 17th. and he will continue to be retrograde until August 11th. And he will have his cazimi with the sun about a week from now. So you can see Mercury's moving backward, the sun's moving forward. And that is important. The cazimi with the sun is the midpoint in the retrograde. We can think of retrogrades as, especially with Mercury, because he's so close to the sun, this is a planet that's so closely connected to the sun. His orbit is always going to be very close to the sun. And Mercury actually never goes more than 30 degrees away from the sun in the astrological charts. So he gets to a certain point far, at his farthest reaches away from the sun, and it's like the sun pulls him back. So that's what's happening right now. Mercury is retrograde. He's moving back toward the sun. The sun is pulling him back. They're going to have their conjunction, which is called the Mercury cazimi. And then Mercury is going to move out to the other side of the sun and then be pulled back again as he starts to go forward. So it's a very interesting cycle. And Mercury will have about 3 retrogrades a year. Some rare years we have 4, but generally 3 retrogrades a year for Mercury. So this is one of those times. So you do want to really pay attention to what is coming up for you. What are the themes? What are you especially working with and especially aware of from July 17th to August 11th? And you may not be able to see it quite clearly right now on July 23rd. We're kind of still in the beginning stages of that Mercury retrograde. It does depend on where Leo is in your chart and where the first 15 degrees of Leo especially are in your chart, because that's where Mercury will be retrograde in your chart. Mercury is always going to help us when he's retrograde, help us to recalibrate, rewrite, rethink, revise, redo, re-envision, all the RE words. It's really a time to try not to be pushing too much with forward movement, but actually let yourself surrender into reviewing things, redoing the plan, reimagining, right? And seeing what wants to be shifted and recalibrated in your life. And Mercury themes are going to include things like working with your voice, speaking up when we need to, communicating clearly. It can also be about business. Mercury is very related to business, marketing, business communication. So there could be a recalibration for you around that and how that's showing up in your life. And also our thoughts, our mind, right? What kind of thoughts are we holding? And I think this is one of the big ways that Mercury wants to work with us during this retrograde is, we're navigating this time in the world that we do hear so much bad news. We hear so many crazy things that are happening. And we don't want to let our mind go down a negative spiral, because at the same time, what is not shown on the news and what is also happening is incredibly good news. Miracles, magic breaking through, our powers, our intuition, our psychic abilities, spiritual awakenings happening en masse. I mean, there is so much happening that is counteracting that which is negative in the world. So this is one way that we can work with Mercury in Leo, because he's asking us to be bold and courageous. These are some of the archetypes of Leo. Be bold, have courage, be brave, stand strong, be fierce, and really claim the powerful, positive future that we know is possible. And that begins in our mind, right? That begins with not letting our mind get all caught up in the trap of these YouTube videos with alarming titles on them about the end of the world, not going down those rabbit holes, but instead holding the light, choosing to hold positive thoughts, choosing to stay with our meditation or our yoga or our nature walk practice, whatever works for us, and bringing ourselves back to the positive thoughts every chance that we get. I think that's one of the ways that Mercury will definitely be working with us collectively, but there may be individual ways that Mercury is working with you during this retrograde. So really pay attention to those themes that come up for you from July 17th to August 11th, and that will inform you. And during the retrograde, we're just figuring out what he's telling us. We're getting the message, we're putting together the puzzle pieces and like, oh, I see this is coming up. I need to shift how I'm communicating in this situation, for example, Or maybe I need to ask for a raise at work because I really know that I'm being undervalued and this is the next step and that is what I need to communicate. And of course, that's related to money and business as well, which Mercury is closely connected to. So see what comes up for you. And then after the retrograde is done, even in the 1 month or 2 months out after the retrograde is done, then you'll feel the energy coming in and you'll know when is the right time to take action on what you have recalibrated during that time. So those are some thoughts about the Mercury retrograde. I'm going to talk soon about what planets the new moon is in aspect to, but first of all, too, I want to tell you about this Mars conjunction with the South Node. So the good thing about this is it's completing now. You can see that. So Mars is moving actually away from the South Node. By the time we get to this new moon, Mars is about 2 degrees or a little more than 2 degrees away, and Mars is moving away, pulling away from the South Node. But for the last week, we have been in the energy of Mars applying to and then being conjunct with the South Node at 19 degrees of Virgo. And this has been not an easy energy because the South Node represents our past and especially the trauma and the karma associated with our past. This South Node being in Virgo is really calling us to look at what are the ways that we've been silenced? What are the ways that with Virgo we have in previous lives or previous generations held the sacred knowledge but been silenced in that? Or what are the ways that we were standing up as the healer, the priest, the priestess, the sacred one, holding the sacred rites, and something bad happened, something scary happened, and we were silenced. And then we build patterns around that, right? And this is interesting. It connects with the Mercury retrograde and speaking up boldly because we're this South Node and Mars being conjunct the South Node, bringing a really strong fears, could be anger, could be fear, could be, really intense emotions around what this South Node in Virgo represents. We form patterns around that where we say, I'm never going to speak up again because that was too scary that time that happened before, right? Or patterns of not believing in ourselves or patterns of thinking we're wrong. And so this Mars conjunct the South Node over the last week leading up to this new moon, it's important to look back over that last week and see what came up for you around patterns from the past that you're ready to be done with. And you can choose to release them now. And that's the good part of this transit. It's difficult because we have to look at those old traumatic patterns. But it's positive because Mars comes through and helps us take action in a new way, choose something new. Mars also stands for being bold and courageous, just as Leo does. They both represent that energy of fire, the boldness, the courage, the bravery, the confidence. So we get to claim our confidence in a new way, step out of that old pattern that might have been revealed to us over the last week and choose something new with courage and confidence. So all of those things, the Mercury retrograde, the Mars conjunct the South Node, have been leading us into this new moon. And then this new moon in and of itself is incredibly powerful. I'm going to show you why. So as we're recalibrating with Mercury, as we're clearing the old trauma and old patterns with Mars, then this new moon happens and it comes in to give us a fresh new beginning in the area of Leo. So Leo is where we claim our voice. Leo is where we speak up. We are confident. We are clear. We are bold and courageous. Those words, I'm going to keep saying them again and again because it's such a theme of what's in the zodiac right now, boldness and courage. And, if we think of the energy of the lion, Sekhmet can be so helpful to connect with at this time with the Mercury retrograde in Leo, but also especially with this new moon in Leo. And what does Sekhmet stand for? She is fierce love. She is the great mother. She is the primordial mother. She is so strong, so bold, so courageous. And she's an amazing role model for us when we're ready to step into something new, step out of the old, doubting ourselves or being too worried about details, which is another thing that can happen with South Node and Virgo, being too worried about the details. not being able to see the bigger picture plan because we're so focused on the details, right? So she can help us see the bigger plan and really take fierce and right action. And that is an incredible energy to be working with for this new moon, embracing that energy of the lion. So, and this is the feline, right? So for you, you might identify more with the lion, you might identify with a tiger, with a cheetah, with the jaguar. Any of those big cat energies are going to be really, really potent for us at this new moon. So connect in with your guide or guides who hold that archetype. It might be Sekhmet, it might be a jaguar in the Amazonian jungle, you know, really connect in with what that Leo archetype means and what feels right in your heart, you know, for how you connect with that to you. And there are some incredibly powerful aspects going on here. So in my talk that I did yesterday, I was talking about the 4 outer planets and how they are in a very specific and very rare alignment where we have Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius in a trine to Uranus, currently at 0 degrees of Gemini. Okay, so these are in a trine in air signs, in the very first degrees of these 2 air signs. And then sextile to both of those, right in the middle between the 2 of them, we have Saturn and Neptune almost in a conjunction. This is the conjunction that won't be exact till February 2026, but they're really close. They're lining up at 1 and 2 degrees of Aries. So if we look at those, which are a powerful force that's going to be guiding us in our revolutions, our rebellions, our opening to profound change that is leading us harmoniously, because these are in trines and sextiles to one another, right? The outer planets, and these are all 4 outer planets, they guide us in our collective evolution. So they're guiding us into a new world, a new way of looking at society, a new way of looking at leadership. That's especially Pluto in Aquarius. A new way of working with technology. That's Uranus and Gemini, really leading us into the new energy. So this new moon is in amazing relationship with all of those outer planets. The new moon is in a sextile to Uranus. Okay. This is 60 degrees apart. That's a sextile. That is a favorable harmonic energy. It is in a trine to Saturn and Neptune at 1 and 2 degrees of Aries, right? The fire signs, they're in a trine together. They're working harmoniously with one another. And then the only more challenging part of this is that the new moon is opposite Pluto. But what's really important to notice here is that the new moon is working very, very directly with all 4 of those outer planets. And so this new moon basically is saying, if we look at this in a big picture view, there's a lot of change happening, a lot of revolutions. And we are here to sit and be aware of all of that and to be bold and courageous and brave and hold the light. And that is how we birth the new future. And so many of these aspects are harmonious that we can really trust we're being guided very powerfully into that revolutionary new future. Again, I shared so much about this yesterday in my talks. If you haven't seen that, check that out. I put it in the chat to link, you know, you can easily find it. But these outer planets are all in trines and sextiles to one another. They have all just moved into new signs. This is a huge new beginning. Absolutely huge new beginning. Now, another thing that's happening with this new moon is we're opening the portal to the Lion's Gate time of year. The new moon in Leo always opens a portal to the Lion's Gate. So the Lion's Gate is something I'm going to give you also the high level view on this because I don't want to spend too long on it. But the Lion's Gate is celebrating this time that has been very sacred since the times of ancient Egypt and probably even before. That is the heliacal rising of the star Sirius. The star Sirius is a fixed star at 13 degrees of Cancer, and it is the great goddess Isis in the Egyptian tradition. So this is Isis. She is Sirius. And so Isis, Sirius, the star, is invisible in our sky. We cannot see her. She was considered by the ancient Egyptians to be in the underworld from the middle of May until late July, early August, when the Lion's Gate occurs. And what happens at the Lion's Gate time is she has her heliacal rising where she becomes visible in the nighttime sky once again. This is the goddess returning to the land. And what the ancient Egyptians experienced in ancient Egypt, before all the dams were built in the Nile that are there now, right, is that there was this annual time of drought when they couldn't see her. From May to July, their world was in drought. The Nile waters got very low or even completely dried up. It was very difficult to grow the crops. They did not know each year if life would continue. And then at the same time as the star reappeared in the sky, rising just before dawn, the waters would return. The floods would come back to the Nile. The floods would overflow the banks of the Nile with all of this abundance of life itself. And the great goddess had returned, and she had brought back the nurturing waters, the nurturing milk that would sustain them once again for another year. So this is a very sacred time that we still celebrate. Today we call it the Lion's Gate. But as we're entering into that time, we have this new moon in Leo that is opening the portals for that Lion's Gate energy to come in. And this is a time for us to really claim life, for us to claim the energy of the sacred feminine, the goddess, the priestess in our world and within ourselves. And to know, to trust with all of our hearts that life will always be renewed, no matter how hopeless it looks, because they really went through that in ancient Egypt. Some years it looked very hopeless, but then the goddess would rise in the sky and the floodwaters would return again. Right? How powerful is that? So she is with us still now, maybe even stronger than ever. And she will be having her heliacal rising soon. So you can start now looking for toward the east just before sunrise to see her. And when she reappears in your sky, it will depend on your latitude. The closer to the equator that you are, the sooner it will be. And maybe those close to the equator may even be able to see Sirius in the morning sky now before dawn. Where I am in Maryland, I think it's around 30 or 31 degrees latitude. It happens around August 6th. So the further you get from the equator, the longer you have to wait for her to rise. But wherever you are, if you look toward the east in the pre-dawn sky now, you will see another great goddess, Venus. Venus is at 22 degrees of Gemini right now, or at least she will be as this new moon is occurring. And so she has once again risen as the morning star. And I just saw her this morning because I was up really early and I looked out and she was shining so brightly, so beautifully. And what we're going to see as we go forward, and I'll just scroll forward like 1 week. So you can see Venus is at 22, Gemini. If I go forward a week, she's moving into Cancer. She's getting close to Jupiter. And what's going to happen by August 11th is that we will have a Venus-Jupiter conjunction with Sirius where they will all be together in the pre-dawn sky. And you'll be able to see them all pretty close, even, starting around this time, August 6th, 7th, 8th, the peak of the Lion's Gate. And then that conjunction will be exact on August 11th. Whoops, let me go forward a month from this, August 11th and 12th. So I'll just put that chart up here briefly. So you can see here's Venus and Jupiter together at 13 Cancer. That's where Sirius is too. So you will see them just before the dawn. So this new moon is opening the portal to that Lion's Gate, opening the portal to this extremely beneficial Venus-Jupiter conjunction. It's an incredible time that we are in. So we want to really lean into the boldness and the courage that will be rising in us. We want to lean into these incredible energies of the great goddess returning and all the support we're getting from the 4 outer planets as they are in trines and sextiles to one another, as they are supporting our collective evolution at this time. All of that's being activated by the new moon.